Clara had always been a lively young woman, full of dreams and curiosity about the world beyond her small town. Her family had lived there for generations, tending to a modest farm that barely paid the bills. Despite the challenges, Clara loved her life and the quiet beauty of her surroundings. She often wandered through the fields at sunset, letting the golden light wash over her face, imagining a life filled with freedom and choices that she could make for herself. But lately, that freedom had begun to feel like a distant dream, slipping further away with each passing day. Her family had grown worried about their financial troubles, especially since her father had fallen ill and her mother struggled to manage both the farm and household chores. They talked about possibilities constantly, sometimes arguing late into the night. One idea kept coming up and it made Clara's stomach twist with unease. Ethan, a wealthy rancher from the neighboring town, had expressed interest in marrying her. He was well known in the community, respected, strong, and successful. But Clara did not love him. The thought of marrying someone she didn't care for made her feel trapped. Clara tried to avoid the topic whenever it came up at the dinner table. She smiled politely at her parents and nodded when they spoke, but inside her mind was filled with a storm of emotions. She wanted to honor her family's wishes, but she also wanted to remain true to herself. One evening, after her parents had gone to bed, Clara sat by the window in her small bedroom. The moonlight streamed in, painting the room silver, and she whispered to herself, "Please, I don't want to marry him." Her best friend, Lila, had been her confidant for years. The two had grown up together, sharing secrets, laughter, and dreams. Clara knew she could trust Lila with her fears, so the next day, she visited her friend at her home just down the street. As soon as she entered, she poured her heart out. "Lila, I don't know what to do. My family wants me to marry Ethan, but I just can't. I don't love him. I don't even feel anything for him, and I don't want to start a life like that." Lila listened carefully, nodding and squeezing Clara's hand. "I understand, Clara. You have to think about yourself too. Your happiness matters. Maybe there's a way to show your family what you really feel without hurting them too much." Clara sighed, feeling slightly lighter after sharing her worries. But deep down, she knew that avoiding the engagement or hiding her feelings entirely wouldn't solve anything. She had to find a way to reveal the truth before it was too late. Days passed and the pressure at home increased. Her parents had invited Ethan's family over for dinner, expecting Clara to show interest and accept his proposal. Clara tried to maintain her composure, putting on polite smiles and small talk, but inside she felt like a caged bird. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed confident and calm. He spoke with a steady voice, showing no sign of the tension that Clara felt. There was something about him that made people listen and follow, and Clara knew that convincing anyone to see her point of view would be difficult. The day of the engagement announcement arrived, and Clara's heart raced with anxiety. She walked slowly into the hall, greeting guests with practiced grace while her mind raced with plans of how to handle the situation. She had decided to take a small risk. She would visit the ranch that afternoon under the pretense of learning more about Ethan's work. She hoped that in the process she might find a clue or reason to justify her refusal to marry him. The ranch was vast and impressive. Rolling hills stretched for miles, dotted with livestock and sturdy fences. Clara followed Ethan through the fields, noticing the meticulous way he inspected the land and animals. At first she felt a strange sense of awe. Everything seemed so organized, so under control, a stark contrast to her own chaotic home life. But as they walked further, she noticed subtle hints that something was off. Workers moved quickly and silently, avoiding eye contact. A few whispered urgently to each other before hurrying away. Clara's curiosity grew stronger. She wandered closer to a small barn at the edge of the property, careful to stay unnoticed. Inside, she saw a scene that made her freeze. A group of workers was struggling with a task, clearly under strain, and Ethan's instructions, though calm, were sharp and commanding. Clara could sense the tension in the air. She realized that beneath the rancher's calm exterior, there were pressures and actions she had not been aware of. It was confusing and troubling, and it made her heart pound with a mixture of fear and urgency. Clara stepped back quietly, hoping Ethan hadn't noticed her presence. Her mind raced. This discovery changed everything. She knew she could not marry someone without understanding who they truly were and what their life entailed. The thought of being tied to a man whose actions she couldn't fully trust was unbearable. She remembered the promise she had made to herself, that she would honor her own feelings no matter the consequences. When she returned home that evening, Clara could barely focus on dinner. Her parents asked about her day, and she gave vague responses, careful not to reveal her growing fears. But inside, her resolve was strengthening. She realized that staying silent would only make her life harder. She needed to plan carefully, to find a way to confront the truth and protect herself, without causing unnecessary pain to her family. That night, Clara sat by the window again, the moon casting its gentle glow across her room. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "I have to be brave. I have to do what's right, even if it's hard." She thought of Lila and the advice she had given her, about standing up for herself and making choices that truly mattered. Clara knew that the path ahead would not be easy. Confronting Ethan, revealing what she had seen, and facing her family's disappointment were all daunting challenges. Yet for the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. The next morning, she met Lila again and shared what she had discovered at the ranch. Lila's eyes widened as Clara explained the tension among the workers and the strict control Ethan seemed to exert. "Clara, this is serious," Lila said softly. "You were right to notice. You need to think carefully about your next steps, but don't let fear hold you back. You have to protect yourself." Clara nodded, determination hardening within her. She realized that her choice was not just about rejecting a marriage proposal. It was about asserting her own values and ensuring that she did not lose herself in someone else's world. She spent the following days observing, quietly gathering her thoughts and piecing together what she had seen. She wanted to be sure of her decision, not only for herself but also for the sake of her family who trusted her judgment. Finally, the day of the engagement announcement arrived. Clara felt her heart pounding as she entered the hall. Guests were chatting, smiling, and congratulating each other. But Clara's mind was focused on a single truth. She could not marry Ethan. She had seen too much, and her instincts screamed that this life was not meant for her. As Ethan approached her with a confident smile, Clara took a deep breath and prepared herself for what she knew would be a difficult conversation. She glanced at her parents, who were beaming with expectation. She knew they meant well, but she also knew that their happiness should not come at the cost of her own. Clara straightened her back, lifted her chin, and resolved to speak her truth. Inside her heart was a storm of nerves and fear, yet beneath it all a quiet strength had begun to shine. She understood that the moment had come to make a choice, one that could change her life forever. And in that moment, as the room buzzed with polite conversation and anticipation, Clara felt a sense of clarity she had never known before. She could no longer hide behind smiles or silent compliance. She had to act. She had to tell the truth. The story of Clara's courage was only beginning, and the events that would follow promised to change everything, for her, for Ethan, and for the people around them. But for now, she stood quietly, heart pounding, ready to take the first step toward a future that was truly her own. Clara stood quietly in the hall, her heart racing as she faced Ethan. The guests, unaware of the tension building between the two, continued to chat and laugh, their voices creating a soft hum in the background. Ethan's confident smile made her stomach twist. He approached her slowly, extending his hand as if to seal their engagement, but Clara's mind was made up. She could no longer pretend. She had to reveal what she had discovered, no matter how difficult it might be. "Ethan," she began, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. "I need to be honest with you. I cannot marry you." The words hung in the air like a sudden storm. Ethan's confident expression faltered just for a moment. He looked at her closely, trying to read her eyes. "Clara, what are you saying? You can't just refuse. This is important for both our families," he said, his tone calm but edged with concern. "I know what this means to my family," Clara replied, her voice firmer now, "but I cannot live a life that is not true to me. I cannot marry you because I've learned things about the ranch, things that I cannot ignore. I cannot pretend that everything is fine." Ethan froze. For the first time, his composure wavered. Clara could see the flicker of fear in his eyes. He took a step back, his hand dropping slowly to his side. He had not expected her to speak so boldly, or to know what she had seen at the ranch. Clara took a deep breath, gathering her courage. She knew she had to explain herself fully if she wanted her family and the others to understand. "At your ranch, I saw how the workers were treated. They were overworked and clearly unhappy. I saw the tension, the fear in their eyes. I cannot marry someone who allows that to happen. I cannot be part of a life where people suffer, even if it is hidden behind wealth and power." The room fell silent. Even the guests had begun to notice the shift in energy. Ethan's jaw tightened and he looked away as if trying to hide his reaction. Clara felt a pang of guilt for exposing him in front of everyone, but she knew it had to be done. She could not let fear or politeness keep her silent. Ethan finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. "Clara, I didn't think you would notice. I didn't expect anyone to see what goes on behind the scenes. It's complicated. The ranch is hard work. Things aren't perfect, but I never meant for anyone to be hurt." "I don't care about intentions," Clara said firmly. "I care about what happens. I cannot marry someone whose actions cause harm, even indirectly. I have to stand by my values even if it upsets everyone." Clara's parents looked shocked. Her mother's hand covered her mouth and her father's eyes widened in disbelief. They had never imagined Clara would speak so openly, especially in front of Ethan. But beneath their shock there was also a glimmer of respect. They saw the strength in their daughter's eyes, the determination to do what was right. Ethan remained silent for a long moment, processing her words. Then slowly he nodded, almost reluctantly. I understand. I didn't expect this, but I see now that you are serious. You've seen the truth and you've made your choice. I cannot force you." Clara felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because she had finally spoken her truth, and sadness because she had to disappoint her family, even if it was for the right reason. She turned to them, her voice soft but steady. "I know this is hard to accept, but I cannot marry Ethan. I hope one day you will understand why this is the best choice for me." Her parents exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of worry and admiration. They had always wanted the best for Clara, and though they had envisioned a different path for her, they could see the courage it took for her to stand firm. Slowly they nodded, a silent acknowledgement that their daughter's happiness mattered most. The guests, sensing the seriousness of the moment, began to murmur quietly among themselves. Some looked sympathetic, others curious, but all understood that something significant had just occurred. Clara felt a wave of empowerment. She had faced fear, spoken her truth, and stood her ground. Over the next few days, Clara reflected on the events that had unfolded. She knew that her decision would have consequences. Ethan would have to deal with the scrutiny and the changes required at the ranch. Her family would have to adjust their expectations. And she would have to navigate life independently, finding her own path. Clara decided to visit the ranch one last time, not to confront Ethan again, but to ensure she had understood everything she had seen. She walked through the fields, noticing the workers, the livestock, and the small buildings that made up the ranch.
She realized that her observations had been correct. The ranch required changes.
And those changes needed to start with Ethan accepting responsibility. When she arrived at the barn where she had first noticed the tension among the workers, she took a deep breath and called out softly. The workers paused, some looking at her with cautious curiosity. Clara spoke gently, assuring them that she only wanted to understand their experiences. Slowly, they began to share small stories, confirming what she had suspected. The work was demanding, and the pressure from Ethan had made it difficult for them to speak up. Clara listened quietly, her heart heavy but determined. She realized that her role was not to punish, but to stand by her principles and ensure the truth was known. That evening, Clara returned home, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and resolve. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she felt ready to face them. She had discovered a strength within herself that she had never known existed, a courage to speak out, even when it was uncomfortable or frightening. Her parents, seeing her return, welcomed her warmly. They did not press for explanations, understanding that their daughter had made a choice that required careful thought. Clara shared her thoughts gently, explaining what she had seen and how it had influenced her decision. Though they were disappointed that the engagement was over, they also recognized the honesty and integrity that guided their daughter's actions. In the days that followed, Clara noticed changes at the ranch. Rumors spread that Ethan had begun to listen more to his workers, making small adjustments to improve their conditions. Clara felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her courage had contributed, even in a small way, to positive change. She realized that standing up for what was right did not always mean confrontation or conflict. It could also mean inspiring others to reconsider their actions and make better choices. Clara's life gradually returned to its normal rhythm, though now with a new sense of purpose. She spent more time on her own projects, helping her family manage the farm and exploring new opportunities for learning and growth. She began teaching local children about farming, nature, and responsibility, sharing her knowledge and passion in ways that made her feel fulfilled. One afternoon, as she walked through the fields, Clara thought about the events that had changed her life. She remembered the fear she had felt when speaking her truth, the tension in the hall when she refused Ethan's proposal, and the quiet determination that had carried her through. She realized that these experiences had shaped her in ways she could not have imagined, giving her confidence, clarity, and a sense of independence. Clara also reflected on the importance of honesty and integrity. She understood that life would always present difficult choices, but facing them with courage and compassion was what defined a person's character. She felt proud of herself for making a decision that honored her values and respected the lives of others, even when it was not the easiest path. Weeks later, Clara received a letter from Ethan. He had taken her words seriously and was working to improve the conditions at the ranch. He thanked her for opening his eyes and admitted that her courage had inspired him to become a better person. Clara smiled as she read the letter, feeling a sense of closure. She knew that her choice had made a difference and she could move forward without regret. Life continued, full of its small joys and challenges. Clara grew more confident with each passing day, discovering new strengths, talents, and opportunities. She nurtured her relationships, supported her family, and embraced the freedom she had fought to preserve. The experience with Ethan had taught her the value of standing up for oneself, the power of honesty, and the importance of making choices that aligned with her heart. Clara knew that her future was hers to shape. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. She had discovered that speaking the truth could be transformative, both for oneself and for others. And most importantly, she had realized that happiness could only come when she lived a life true to herself. As Clara walked through the fields one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she felt a sense of peace and possibility. The past had been challenging, but it had also been a time of growth and discovery. She looked forward to the future with hope, knowing that whatever came next, she had the strength and courage to face it. And in that moment, Clara understood that she was free, truly free to live her life on her own terms, guided by her values, her heart, and the knowledge that she had made the right choice.